Reality is not as it seems. Secrets hide behind every corner. Today, we will reveal them.
So now the next thing we're going to go over is this false opposition is fake conspiracies. The conspiracy knows that there are people out there that are not going to be convinced or, tricked into believing there's no such thing as conspiracy. So to get the people that know that there are conspiring people out there, they come up with fake conspiracies, right? And that are intended to associate them with real conspiracies. And so this benefits the conspiracy by misleading people down foolish roads as they fail to perceive between fictional and real conspiracies, conspiracy theory versus conspiracy fact. This can cause the real conspiracies to appear fictional. When you sandwich these things together, then it puts them all on the same page. It also creates objects of ridicule for the conspiracy to leverage. They'll put out a fake thing out there, they'll get some people to believe it and promote it, and then it gets obviously proven to be false, and so they get to lump it in with the real conspiracies. Generates a disposition in the mind of a fool, of course, against the fact that a real and thriving conspiracy actually exists, because you have that boy who cried wolf mentality where you've talked about all these fake conspiracies, and so when you're actually able to identify a real one, nobody believes you. So we have flat earth, we have shape-shifting lizard people, we have laser beams shooting down the Twin Towers, just examples of these fake things that make people look like fools. What if cats have their own internet? It's full of pictures of us. Birds aren't real. That's actually a real thing, people say. And then, of course, QAnon, and that's maybe going to surprise some of you as well, is also one of these false opposition movements. Operation Trust was a Soviet program, an operation of the Soviet secret police, officially lasting from 1921 to 1926. The language that they use is going to be eerily familiar, I think. They set up a fake anti-Bolshevik organization called the Monarchist Union of Central Russia. So, we're against this communist revolution. We want the monarchy back. Part of their purpose was to identify the supporters of the monarchy, so that helped to serve their purpose. And then they also were led by Alexander Yukashev, a bureaucrat in the Tsarist government, to give the movement credibility. So they found somebody that was actually in the monarchy that was now on their side, but people didn't know that, to lead this movement that gave them credibility, and then they were able to co-opt them as an anti-communist organization that was actually working to support their efforts. And the people were convinced not to engage in violent acts against the communist regime by convincing them that a plan was underway. Trust the plan within the government that would topple the regime from within. There's a secret group of white hats in the government working behind the scenes to take care of business, so you don't have to worry about it. We got this covered. You just sit back and watch the show. That should sound familiar because they've copied that same program today.
We're going to talk about the QAnon conspiracy. So it's a fascinating topic. So basically the QAnon conspiracy kind of almost came out of the Pizzagate conspiracy. And I remember when Pizzagate broke, which was very fascinating. It came basically from the John Podesta emails that were released by Julian Assange. And, they were released, and basically, I'm not sure if it happened pre-election, but pretty soon after the election, people began to notice very strange things in the John Podesta emails. And they began to notice possible use of code words and things like this that could possibly be connected to a kind of pedophile kind of network or something. And people were kind of very perplexed by this, and there was this whole kind of movement quickly began to coalesce online, where people began to examine aspects of John Podesta. And obviously there were many weird things about John Podesta. For example, Andrew Breitbart had called out John Podesta and said that he had a lot of skeletons in the closet in relation to this kind of topic, and then he died a week later. So, it's a very kind of, mysterious kind of topic that it seems like the elite definitely wanted hushed up and shut up. But then it also came, kind of spiraled into the agenda in relation to MeToo and in relation to Harvey Weinstein and all the kind of sexual abuse that's been going on in Hollywood. People like Kevin Spacey, people like Woody Allen, Roman Polanski, and also the whole thing thing with Jeffrey Epstein, which was still a kind of rumor and almost a conspiracy theory. Jeffrey Epstein had this island, and he had all these underage girls, and the world's elite were going there. This was at the time of Pizzagate, when it first broke, that Jeffrey Epstein even seemed a conspiracy. But Jeffrey Epstein broke and was arrested, and then obviously died in custody a few weeks later. And it went from conspiracy, conspiracy theory to conspiracy fact. And then people began to think, well, maybe there's something to this kind of John Podesta thing as well. So this QAnon conspiracy began to kind of grow out of all that kind of nexus of ideas, really, that Donald Trump was secretly taking down basically the cabal. And I was always kind of sympathetic to it. And Q himself was somebody within, supposedly, he was somebody within the Donald Trump basically cabinet or office who had Q level clearance, and he was releasing secret kind of messages to the general public about what Donald Trump was up to, that he was secretly taking down this aspect of the deep state, that he was secretly going after this level of human trafficking, that he was secretly going after Hillary Clinton and Obama and all this stuff. And some of it seemed to have legs, in the sense that it seemed like Donald Trump legitimately was doing things like that. Obviously, there were catchphrases like the calm before the storm, and Donald Trump did say a phrase like that. So it did seem to have some connection to reality. So I was kind of fond of it. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily I believed every aspect of Q, but every, say, month I would check in with a guy called Praying Medic, who was a kind of guy who, and he's still someone worth checking out, actually, and he does really good Q videos. So check out a guy called Praying Medic, and once a month go check it out, and he does these interesting reports of what Q is up to and what Q is hinting is coming down the pipeline, and some of these things do actually happen. But I've noticed of late, there's a few people online, and I won't say who they are because I think these people are basically good intention, but they have taken QAnon in an area it's so strange. They say that basically half of Hollywood has already been arrested and executed, and that Trump has basically already executed most of these pedophile criminals and deep state criminals, people like Clapper and stuff. And not only that, he's replaced them with clones or something like this. It's gone off into a kind of area that's like science fiction. And to me, this feels like the cabal itself has infiltrated QAnon and is now filling it with nonsense. For example, the flat earth theory I've always thought is a nonsense because the world is round. Obviously you look at the moon, that's round, the sun is round. If you look through a telescope, you can see Mars, it's round, the earth is round. I'm sorry to report to people who believe the flat earth theory. But, it seemed to me like someone was ladling on disinformation and misinformation on top of the QAnon conspiracy to make it sound ridiculous. And I've noticed that of late, there's this kind of idea of a great solar flash and a thing called 5D. I don't even know what any of these things are. And I'm someone who sort of follows conspiracy theories to some extent. But it seems like someone is definitely ladling on disinformation and misinformation onto the QAnon conspiracy. So I would say, if you're a fan of conspiracy theories, watch out for bullshit, okay? Because there can be just as much bullshit in conspiracy theories as there can be in mainstream news. You've got to have a good bullshit detector to look at mainstream news, and you've got to have a good bullshit detector to watch conspiracy theories. So that's all I really wanted to say, that the QAnon conspiracy is interesting. Maybe there's some meat on its bones, so to speak. Maybe there is something to Pizzagate and stuff. So that all should be investigated by the right authorities. But, the idea that, like all these vast kind of like people are being replaced by clones and that some people are dead. The royal family apparently is dead and been replaced by clones. I mean, it's absolute nonsense, this kind of aspect of the QAnon conspiracy. And you should be very wary of it and very wary of spreading it on Facebook because it looks ridiculous. It looks like you're mentally insane and you don't want to do that. You need to be able to sort the wheat from the chaff, the fact from the fiction, in everything, whether it be mainstream news and conspiracy theories. And that's all I wanted to say on the report from Tiger Mountain about QAnon. Thanks for listening.